occasional will to stupidity is a sign of a strong character, said Friedrich Nietzsche. He also said, while praising the ancient Greeks, that they were superficial precisely because they were profound. Now, what does this have to do with the modern trend of retardmaxxing? Was Friedrich Nietzsche the original retardmaxer? Let's talk about it. For those of you who are not chronically online, this concept of retardmaxxing has been going viral for months now online. And why is it going viral? Something that could be so controversial to even say retardmaxxing, but here I am now saying it, embracing the spirit of that concept itself, just saying it, not caring about it. Something that could be so controversial to say, something that seems like a very niche thing, retardmaxxing, that seems like this new modern lingo, but again, so many people are embracing the term. People who are well-read, people who are educated, people who don't usually engage in these modern trends are talking about retardmaxxing. Why is that? Well, maybe the embracing of this term, of this concept, of this trend, of this meme, maybe the embracing of it is showing what most people realize deep down that they are missing. They are missing a life with less self-consciousness. Let's remember, not consciousness, but self-consciousness. This is something I often talk about when discussing the flow state or the peak experience as defined by Abraham Maslow, where self-consciousness is not the same as just consciousness. Self-consciousness is state of over-analyzing one's thoughts, one's internal states, and as well one's external appearance behavior. Okay, so people are realizing that what they are missing is a life with less self-consciousness, a life where they can embrace their instinct, because all of us do have our instincts. That's another thing that Nietzsche was talking about. We are the sickest animal because we left behind our instincts. Carl Jung talked about it as well. Someone who talked about it before Nietzsche and is not getting enough praise and enough credit is Arthur Schopenhauer, also a German philosopher who greatly inspired Nietzsche. So we have these great thinkers saying that we have become sick because we have become detached from our instincts. The lack of instincts or lack of being in touch with our instincts is leading to this life of overanalyzing. And here I am, under the username Recovering Overthinker. I've been under that username for over 6 years online, because when I started writing online, I was thinking, how can I describe myself so that kindred spirits find me and can relate to me? And I thought, recovering overthinker. I want to live a more action-based life. I want to analyze myself less and live more. So I could also say that I have been talking about retardmaxxing before it was cool. If you look at my writings from around 4 years ago, I was going heavily into analyzing this idea. And you see, I'm catching myself now, heavily into analyzing the idea of analyzing life less. But whatever the case may be, however you want to phrase it, however you want to consider it, I was writing often, very often about this concept by Nietzsche, also citing Schopenhauer. Another book that inspired me greatly in pursuit of retardmaxxing before it was cool, before it had a name, is Hagakure by Yamamoto Tsunetomo. It is almost a manifesto for Samurai Codex and speaks a lot about simple-mindedness and taking action before one is ready and taking action before falling into the trap of overanalyzing. So I can say, as the recovering overthinker, as someone who has gathered audience around the idea of learning how to think less and live more, I can say that people are missing this. And to be completely honest, I don't know where the concept of retardmaxxing started. I don't know who coined the phrase, but in any case, people caught onto it because people know, people are aware, maybe not even on a rational level as much as on a deep experiential level, that they need a simpler way of living. We're not talking now about necessarily one's lifestyle externally, the habits, the environment, although we could discuss how modern age has contributed to overanalyzing, how the modern age has contributed to living too much in our head and not enough in our body, in our heart, in our belly, in our groins even. But now, aside from the effects of modern age, the point is that this has been a persistent issue. Otherwise, Nietzsche wouldn't have talked about it. He wouldn't have been analyzing ancient Greeks as an example of superficial life out of profoundness, or how his writing is translated, profundity. So, the point that Nietzsche was trying to make, and what I believe the essence of retardmaxxing is, if it is a constructive term, and I think it can be, the essence is that the healthy person, the healthy in the sense of health of their will, health of their capacity to engage in life, psychological health, if we want to look at psychology through the lens of Carl Jung, Abraham Maslow, Rollo May, James Hillman, Robert Johnson, not necessarily psychological health through the lens of mainstream psychology, whatever that may be nowadays. I'm not sure if we can even say what mainstream psychology is. But the point is, this will to stupidity, this simple-mindedness, this tendency to take action before overanalyzing it, this retardmaxxing, as we call it nowadays, is a sign of health. And people who consider themselves intellectuals, or people who have strong intellectual tendencies, can fall into the trap of further justifying their over-intellectualizing of life. Because you have this capacity to think, and you have the capacity to think deeply, and to think in complex terms. Well, that gives you a perfect chance to try to think your way out of lack of living. So you might say, these are superficial people, these are simple people. You know, that's the, let's say, the resentful nerd commenting how the jock is a superficial type. And for some of you listening to this, maybe this brings up some painful memories. Sit with those painful memories for a moment. This is not an attack on you as a person. This is not an attack on your self-worth. But I can also tell you that I can relate to you as someone who has spent a lot of his life not deeply engaging in it, and using his intellect, which I think I possess in some decent measure, using his intellect to justify. Other people are superficial. Other people are not thinking enough. Other people are simple. Other people don't have the capacity to look at life as I do. Other people don't have the capacity to analyze themselves as I can. Well, even though that might be true, for myself or for some of you listening, it doesn't matter. Because you know, and I know, that at the end of the day, when you're sitting with yourself, you want to feel more alive. You want to feel, and we also have the capacity to sense this. You want to feel that life inside of you is being honored, that life inside of you is being expressed and lived, that it is not being restrained, that it is not being constricted. Once again, we have the capacity to sense this. This is, for example, a great insight from existential psychology and connected to humanistic psychology as well. A lot of the greats from those traditions, or that combined tradition of existential humanistic psychology, a lot of them would say, if you sit with yourself for 10 seconds, no extensive meditation needed, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, you can give yourself an honest answer to the question whether you're living, truly living, or not. Whether the life that is pulsing within you is being expressed enough. And when we answer this question, most people, the vast majority of people, unfortunately, are not living enough, are not living as much as they would want to be living, are not living as much as they know they should be living in order to honor the life force inside of them, the creative energy inside of them, the life that is accumulated inside of them. However you want to perceive it, however you want to call it, but something inside of you wants to be expressed. I would say it is waiting to be expressed, because in some sense it is waiting, but we could also say it's not waiting, because as the time goes by, its intensity is decreasing. So in some way it is waiting on you and hoping that you will wake up, but in another way it is not really waiting, because time waits for no one. So this state of not living enough, that if we are honest with ourselves, we will say that all of us are familiar with it. This state is what Nietzsche was attacking. This state is what Yamamoto Tsunetomo was attacking in Kagakure. This state is also what Schopenhauer was attacking. All of these thinkers have immense differences between them, but they have also a lot of overlap between them. And this state is what people are acknowledging when they laugh at the concept of retardmaxxing, or when they like a post that mentions retardmaxxing. We think, oh, it's a meme. I don't think much of it. Memes today, in our digital age, convey more about the state of collective unconscious as well as collective consciousness. They convey more about the story of our psyche than the current academic papers being published across universities over the world. And you might call me an anti-intellectual, but I'm not. I immensely respect the effort and the time it takes to approach the study of something in a systematic way. I immensely respect it. But those of you who've delved a bit deeper into academia, you know about the publish or perish principle. Whether it's philosophy, whether it's psychology, unfortunately, a lot of academia is publish or perish, meaning you are publishing for the sake of being relevant, not for the sake of actually pursuing the mission of original academia, which is the pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of enlightening the humanity. So because memes are conveying more about our current state of our collective conscious, collective unconscious, or simply put, they're conveying more or more deeply the story of our psyche, it is because of that that we can look at people reposting, liking, commenting, laughing at the concept of retardmaxxing, this concept gaining virality, being talked about by millions of people. Why? While a random paper published by someone, again with full respect towards the effort that they made, that paper is being discussed by 2 or 3 or 5 people. Sometimes justifiably so. Sometimes justifiably so. It's not just myself who is talking about this. Professors are coming out, people with integrity, for decades now, saying how academia has failed, especially in the realm of philosophy and psychology, well, where they have basically, again, majority, I'm not talking about everyone. I know some people who are generally pursuing the academic life with full passion of the previous great academics. But in majority of the cases, it's not really the pursuit of enlightenment. Well, if that is the case, then we can look at retardmaxxing again. I'm also finding funny that I'm even pronouncing this, but here's where we are. Here's where we are. We can look at that concept as something that, by us considering it interesting, by us getting attracted to it, stopping our day to check out what is this thing, retardmaxxing, we can look at it and notice it as a signal of what is happening inside of us, what need we are feeling, what need exists deep inside of us. Because it is a signal, or rather it is a symptom. Just like we could say that, black pill is not, or red pill, or a lot of different online communities where let's say the vast majority of people agrees are not really the healthiest communities or are extremely unhealthy. We could say they were not created by a handful of malicious individuals trying to destroy the world. They were a symptom of a time, a symptom of a moment in human history, human society, a symptom of particular development in the overall culture, modern culture. What does that mean? Well, there were things that led to development of certain ideologies, because a large portion of men felt marginalized, felt disrespected, felt discouraged. Of course, we could say the same for women, that some trends that are considered problematic are not a result of a handful of women trying to create a trend that is destructive or self-destructive or in some way hurting others, maybe considered disrespectful, whatever. We could say that trend is a symptom of a point in time, symptom of a culture. It was born out of a response to something happening in our society. So when we look at retardmaxxing, we say, here it is, proof number 9746 that Friedrich Nietzsche was a prophet, not a philosopher, not a psychologist, although he was a proto-psychologist. He was a psychologist before psychology as a science existed. He said himself very humbly that he is the first, or that he was the first psychologist. Well, more than philosopher, psychologist, poet, writer, we really could say that Friedrich Nietzsche was a poet. Whether you like him or not, whether you agree with him or not, that's completely irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant whether you subscribe to some of his quote-unquote solutions, whether you subscribe to some of his vicious attacks on religion, completely irrelevant. People can be deeply religious, people can be devoted Christians and say Friedrich Nietzsche was a prophet of predicting the movement of the culture, of overall humanity. Prophet in predicting where the collective psyche will be moving, where the culture will be moving, where the society will be moving, in what way it will be progressing, if we can call those things progress. He was a prophet, and one of these things was his praise for a life led more with instinct, more with action without over-analyzing, more of action without the need to justify it in advance, a life with less self-consciousness, life where occasional will to stupidity is needed in order to follow through on an idea, where that will to stupidity is needed in order to be able to be resistant to the discouragement of the masses, or discouragement of people who love you but don't have your vision. So I'm inviting you to consider a life of more will to stupidity, a life of more superficiality out of your profoundness or profundity. If you like the modern term, a life of more retardmaxxing. I think we all have it in us. We have in us both the need and the capacity to live a more action-based life. After all, this is coming to you from a recovering overthinker. This call to will to stupidity is not coming from someone who was always the ultra adventurous, action-taking, simple-minded type. It's coming from someone who knows that it is possible to make the shift. And I would say it starts with realizing that you have to trust yourself. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust that you have inside of you all the resources needed to go through this life. You have what it takes to lead yourself through life. We will learn lessons along the way. We all need mentors. We all need guides, counselors. We all need help. But essentially, what matters the most is that you can rely on yourself, and you can. So yeah, this is a challenge. Embrace and embody your will to stupidity a bit more. Thank you, friends. As always, stay strong, love life, never feel sorry for yourself, embrace your simple-minded nature, because it is there waiting to be expressed, waiting to prompt you into living more of your life and living it more fully, accompanying that light, that raging fire in your heart, and always go beyond. Thank you.